Welcome back. Oscar Pistorius has denied that he tried committing suicide. That's according to Correctional Services, following media reports that the convicted murderer was rushed to the emergency room after sustaining injuries to his wrist. For more on this, we're joined by eNCA specialist reporter Karyn Maughan, who's of course all over the story as always. Karyn, what can you tell us? What happened?
Well, we know that he was rushed to the hospital about 12:30 yesterday with these injuries on his wrists. There's a bit of confusion because it appears that he had other injuries, including facial bruising, but we haven't had any clarification from Correctional Services as to those injuries. After initially confirming that he had been taken to California Hospital and that the hospital staff there had said that the injuries to his wrists were self-inflicted, Correctional Services has now taken a step back and said it would be, given that these are his private medical details, massively inappropriate to comment. He himself has told family members and told correctional staff that he fell out of his hospital bed and that the injuries were sustained as part of a fall. But we know that his family have gone in to see him today, and at this point there's no real certainty as to what if that account of the fall, which clearly Correctional Services wasn't accepting yesterday, is sustainable or accepted by the family.
Now, this, of course, will be a matter for concern for his defense team and the family, as you mentioned. Could there be any legal grounds for them to perhaps, it was part of their arguments in the first place that he wouldn't get proper care at the prison itself. Could this be any grounds for them to go back to court?
I very much doubt it, because this legal process has been incredibly expensive. He spent, I think, in the region of about 18 million rand. And at this point, I don't think anyone really wants to litigate. We know that he asked for a transfer to Zonavata prison, which is also in Tshwane. And we know that he has, he has registered a complaint about particularly the medical care that he's received. But at this point, we know that transfer was refused. Not quite sure on what grounds, but clearly there is a bit of concern about the level of medical care. But I don't think that's going to translate into court action, because it will just fuel the speculation that Correctional Services and indeed his own defense team have been trying to quell that he's been getting special treatment.
But the defense could use it in, the state going back to appeal the sentence. They could bring this up as, a reason as to why his sentence shouldn't be extended.
Well, remember, a crucial part of their argument in mitigation was, in fact, his psychological state. He was described as near suicidal, a suicide risk, anxiety-ridden, depressed, said he was social phobic, had no energy, forgetful. We know that the evidence of Dr. Scholz formed a substantial part of the defense's argument that this was not a person that should be jailed indefinitely or be given a very long sentence, because he was already so psychologically destroyed. We also know that prior to those sentencing procedures, he had to be taken to hospital in the belief that he was having a heart attack, which in fact was an anxiety attack. So there has been a bit of a history of a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression in terms of this entire process for him. And I think that, if indeed the state is given the right to appeal the sentence, that the defense will return to these arguments, and this particular incident may form part of that particular case.
Now, Correctional Services is also investigating some claims that Oscar Pistorius has been given preferential treatment since his return to prison. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, there have been a number of allegations, and we know that on Friday, as Media House sent a request for comment to Correctional Services on a number of issues, including this claim that he had a pair of scissors in his cell, and that he was part of some kind of bizarre murder-suicide plot to target the nurse that had, testified against him. And from what I understand from the staff, there's not really a belief that that is true. However, they are looking at things about, does he have access to cell phones? Has he been getting food? We know that when he was in prison last year, he became incredibly paranoid about being poisoned, and was in fact living on bully beef and things like that, and not eating the prison food. So they are investigating that. But we know, because of the hypersensitivity around this, Correctional Services last year taking the unprecedented step of bringing the media to his cell showing him and being absolutely adamant that he wasn't. So, you know, they've always maintained that there hasn't been special treatment, but they clearly have received so many media queries about this whole issue that they've decided to institute their own investigation. They're also investigating, allegations that drugs were found in his cell. You know, there's a number of issues that they're looking at, and they're saying that they're hoping to finalize that probe within the next few weeks.
All right, thank you very much. That was our specialist reporter, Karyn Maughan. And of course, if there are any developments on this story, she'll no doubt have it for us.